In 1913, the Federal Reserve took control of America's money supply. In 2008, they took control of the markets. In 2020, they printed $5 trillion and normalized the idea that the government can just create money out of thin air. Now in 2025, they're preparing for the final stage, a system where they control every single transaction you make. It's called a central bank digital currency, CBDC. And it's not some distant dystopian fantasy. It's being tested right now. Over 130 countries are developing them. China already has one, the European Union is rolling one out, and the Federal Reserve has been quietly researching it for years. This is the endgame of the centralization cycle. And once you understand how it works, you'll see why this isn't about convenience or innovation. It's about total financial control. What is a CBDC? Let's start with the basics. What is a central bank digital currency? A CBDC is digital money issued directly by a central bank, like the Federal Reserve. It's not Bitcoin, it's not decentralized, it's the opposite. With a CBDC, every dollar you own would exist as a digital entry in a government database. No physical cash, no private transactions. Every purchase, every transfer, every financial decision you make would be recorded, tracked, and potentially controlled by the central bank. Here's how it's different from the money you use today. Cash. Anonymous, untraceable. You hand someone a $20 bill, the transaction is done. No record, no middleman. Bank deposits, semi-private. Your bank knows what you spend, but the government needs a warrant to access that information. CBDCs, fully transparent to the central bank. Every transaction is visible. Every dollar is programmable. The issuer, the Federal Reserve, can see where you spend, what you buy, and potentially restrict how you use your money. This isn't speculation. This is how CBDCs are designed. China's digital yuan already has these features. The government can track every transaction. They can set expiration dates on money, forcing you to spend it or lose it. They can restrict purchases based on social credit scores. And the Federal Reserve is studying the same system. Why now? The crisis is coming. So why are central banks rushing to launch CBDCs right now? Because they see what's coming. The US national debt is $35 trillion and growing by $1 trillion every year. The Fed's balance sheet is still bloated at over $7 trillion. Inflation is sticky at 2.6%. And the only way the government can keep spending is if the Fed keeps buying its debt, which means printing more money. But here's the problem. People are losing faith in the dollar. Countries like China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia are moving away from dollar-based trade. Bitcoin, BRICS, and other cryptocurrencies are gaining traction as alternatives. And every time the Fed prints another $1 trillion, confidence in the system erodes a little more. The central banks know this, and they know that when the next crisis hits, whether it's a debt crisis, a currency crisis, or a banking collapse, they need a way to maintain control. That's where CBDCs come in. The centralization cycle is entering its final stage. Stage 1, chaos. The current system is breaking. Debt is unsustainable. Inflation is persistent. Trust in fiat currency is declining. Stage 2, public panic. When the next crisis hits, people will demand solutions. Why can't the government just fix this? Stage 3, secret meeting. Behind closed doors, central banks and governments are already coordinating the rollout of CBDCs. The infrastructure is being built right now. Stage 4, centralized control. When the crisis peaks, CBDCs will be introduced as the solution. They'll promise stability, security, and convenience, and most people will accept them without question. But here's what they won't tell you. Once CBDCs are in place, the central bank will have more power over your money than at any point in human history. The power of programmable money. Here's what programmable money actually means. With physical cash, once you have it, it's yours. You can spend it however you want, save it, give it away, burn it. The government can't stop you. With a CBDC, that changes. Because CBDCs are digital and centrally controlled, the issuer can program rules into the money itself. Here's what that could look like. Expiration dates. The government gives you $1,000 in stimulus, but it expires in 30 days. If you don't spend it, it disappears. This forces consumption and prevents saving. Restricted purchases. Your CBDC wallet is flagged. You can't buy certain goods, maybe guns, maybe alcohol, maybe gas for your car, if the government decides your carbon footprint is too high. Negative interest rates. The Fed wants to stimulate the economy, so they program your digital dollars to lose 2% of their value every year. You're penalized for saving. Geofencing. You can only spend your money in certain locations. Travel restrictions become financial restrictions. Social credit integration. Your financial access is tied to your behavior. Say the wrong thing online, your account is frozen. Attend the wrong protest, your transactions are blocked. This isn't science fiction. These features already exist in China's digital yuan, and central banks around the world, including the Fed, are studying them. The Federal Reserve published a report in 2022 exploring the benefits of a digital dollar. They talked about financial inclusion and payment efficiency. But buried in the technical language was the real goal: total visibility and control over the monetary system. The illusion of choice. Now you might be thinking, I just won't use it, I'll stick with cash. But here's the problem, they're not going to give you a choice. The transition to CBDCs won't happen overnight. It will happen in 3 steps. Step 1. Make it convenient. First, they'll introduce CBDCs as an option. It's faster, safer, and more efficient than cash. They'll offer incentives, maybe tax breaks, maybe stimulus payments that only come in digital dollars. They'll make it easy to sign up. Step 2, make cash inconvenient. Next, they'll start phasing out physical currency. Fewer ATMs, fewer businesses are accepting cash. Banks will charge fees for cash deposits and withdrawals. They'll frame it as modernization and fighting crime. After all, only criminals use cash, right? Step 3, make cash illegal. Finally, once enough people are using CBDCs, they'll ban physical currency altogether. They'll say it's to stop money laundering, tax evasion, and terrorism. And most people won't resist because by that point they'll already be dependent on the digital system. India tried this in 2016. The government suddenly banned 86% of the country's cash overnight, forcing people into digital payment systems. It caused chaos, but the government didn't back down. They pushed forward. Sweden is already nearly cashless. Over 80% of transactions are digital. Physical currency is disappearing. The European Central Bank is preparing a digital euro. The Bank of England is testing a digital pound. The Federal Reserve is researching a digital dollar. This isn't a conspiracy theory, this is official policy, and it's happening right now. What this means for you. So what does this mean for your life? If CBDCs become the standard, here's what changes. Your privacy disappears. Every purchase you make is recorded. The government knows where you shop, what you buy, and who you send money to. Financial privacy becomes a relic of the past. Your freedom is restricted. If the central bank doesn't like your behavior, it can freeze your account. No trial, no due process, just a digital switch that cuts you off from the financial system. Your savings are controlled. Negative interest rates, expiration dates, and inflation all become tools to force you to spend rather than save. The concept of building wealth through saving becomes obsolete. Your autonomy is gone. Want to donate to a cause the government doesn't approve of? Blocked. Want to buy something they deem harmful? Denied. Want to send money to a family member abroad? Restricted. This is the ultimate form of the centralization cycle, a system where money itself becomes a tool of control. And here's the darkest part. Most people will accept it willingly. They'll trade freedom for convenience. They'll trade privacy for security. They'll believe the propaganda that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. But history shows us what happens when governments have total financial control. Weimar Germany Soviet Russia, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. Every time a government gains absolute power over money, it ends in economic collapse and tyranny. The difference now is that the technology exists to make that control permanent, global, and inescapable. The alternative. What you can do. First, understand the game. The centralization cycle has been running for over a century. It built the Federal Reserve in 1913. It expanded Fed power through every crisis since. And now it's moving toward the endgame, CBDCs and total financial control. Second, protect yourself. Diversify out of purely fiat-based assets. Consider physical assets, gold, silver, real estate, things that exist outside the digital system. Decentralized alternatives. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that can't be controlled by central banks. Though be aware, governments will try to regulate these heavily. Skills and relationships. In a system of total control, your network and abilities become your most valuable assets. Third, resist the narrative. When CBDCs are introduced, they'll be sold as progress. It's safer. It's more efficient. It's inevitable. Don't buy it. Understand what you're giving up: privacy, freedom, and financial autonomy. Fourth, spread awareness. The only way this system fails is if enough people refuse to accept it. Share this information. Talk about the centralization cycle. Make people understand that convenience isn't worth surrendering control over every dollar you earn. The central banks are counting on apathy. They're counting on people being too distracted, too comfortable, or too scared to resist. Prove them wrong. The choice ahead. We're at a turning point in history. For the first time since 1913, the system that controls our money is facing a legitimacy crisis. People are waking up to the fact that the Federal Reserve isn't working for them, that inflation isn't random, those crises aren't accidents. The centralization cycle has run its course 5 times. 1913, the Fed is created. 1929, the Great Depression, Fed gains more power. 1970s, stagflation, Fed gains more power. 2008, financial collapse, Fed gains more power. 2020, COVID money printing, Fed gains more power. Now in 2025, we're entering the 6th cycle, and this one is different. This time, the endgame isn't just more power for the Fed, it's a complete transformation of money itself. CBDCs represent the final stage, a system where every transaction is visible, every dollar is programmable, and financial freedom becomes a memory. But here's the thing, it only works if we let it. The central banks need your compliance. They need you to believe there's no alternative. They need you to accept that this is inevitable, but it's not. Final message. The centralization cycle that started on Jekyll Island in 1910 has been running for 115 years. It built the Federal Reserve. It survived every crisis. It grew stronger with every intervention. But cycles don't last forever. The question isn't whether the system will change. The question is, who will control what comes next? Will it be the same institutions that created 5 major crises and gained more power each time? Or will it be a system that returns financial power to individuals? The choice is being made right now, in 2025, and your awareness, your decisions, and your resistance matter more than you think, because here's the truth, they don't want you to understand. The system only has power because we give it to them. Every dollar you deposit in a bank, every transaction you make digitally, every time you accept their narrative that this is just how things work, you're feeding the cycle. But the moment you start asking questions, the moment you start seeking alternatives, the moment you refuse to blindly accept their solutions to the crises they created, that's when the cycle breaks. The Federal Reserve has survived this long because most people don't understand what it is, how it works, or why it keeps gaining power during every crisis. But now you do. You understand the centralization cycle, you see the pattern, you know what's coming, and that knowledge is the most dangerous thing to a system built on secrecy and control. So here's what I want you to do. Don't just watch this video and move on. Act on it. Start learning about alternatives to the traditional financial system. Understand how money really works. Question every crisis, question every solution the Fed proposes. And most importantly, don't let them normalize CBDCs. When they start rolling out digital currencies, when they start selling it as progress and convenience, remember what you learned here. Remember that every stage of the centralization cycle was sold the same way. The Panic of 1907, we need stability. The Federal Reserve Act, we need to prevent bank runs. The Great Depression response, we need government intervention. The 2008 bailouts, we need to save the economy. The 2020 money printing, we need to help people. And now, CBDCs, we need a modern, efficient payment system. It's always the same playbook. Crisis, panic, solution, control. But this time, you can see it coming. One last thing. The algorithm will only show this to a fraction of the people who need to see it. But you have something more powerful than any algorithm: trusted relationships. If 10 people you know would benefit from understanding what's coming, and I suspect you know exactly who they are, send this to them. Not because I'm asking you to, but because some conversations are too important to wait for the system to have them for us. What happens next is entirely in your hands. This is Brinkwell. We uncover the patterns that shape power, money, and control. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe, because we're just getting started. The game is rigged, but only if you keep playing by their rules. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.